They are looking for him, their guns raised and fingers over the trigger. It hadn't gone the way he planned. It was supposed to be easy. The car was in place, the bombs were ready to detonate, and he would disappear in a cloud of dust and building debris when it came down. He would get the paycheck, and he would be free to live his life with his family. Now, it didn't seem like the case. His partner hadn't showed up, so they replaced him with one of them dummies. Basically a bag of flesh filled with blood and does nothing to follow your orders. The dummy had a name, but he had forgotten it when he heard sirens coming from up the street, and one of the guys, a man in a light jacket and track pants, pulled out a gun and yelled for him to freeze. His dummy took his gun and began shooting them. Jesus F***ing Christ. So many dead, their bodies on the floor filled with so many holes, he couldn't count them with his fingers. He had escaped out the back and had just barely gotten away. But now they were onto him. They were ready to shoot him and shoot him down till he was barely alive anymore. More like a sponge filled to the brim with bullets. He was hiding now in one of them apartment buildings. He had found a knife in the trash, pocketed it, looked pretty dull, but it was better than nothing. He could hear people yelling, and was that a helicopter? The whirling blades loud and deafening, silencing his own farts as he listened for the copter to move past. They weren't here to arrest him. He had to remember that. Mercy was gone. Instead, there was death waiting inside each one of those bullets, very patient. He saw one of the doors open to a room, didn't care, threw himself in there and knocked out the guy with his knife handle and a punch to the face. The guy he had knocked out barely looked over 20. Darn, must been a college student. He rummaged through the fridge, swapped clothes to get rid of the blood-stained ones, and turned to the window. The police weren't sure yet, but they were checking each building. Soon, they would find him. He ran out through the exits of the apartment complex and found himself in a part of the city that he had forgotten about. Trash birds, then pigeons, were everywhere. The ground was covered in trash, and he could barely walk over solid ground without nearly tipping over a tall pile of plastic, wristed steel parts, and bags of unknown substances that smelled of blood and rotten junk food left for too long. He picked himself up and, placing the knife in his pocket, clambered over some dusty bins filled with shoes and tires, and found himself face to face with a dog. It looked rabid, just from its savage eyes and teeth slobbering with slime. He could smell its breath of recently eaten roadkill and dead raccoons, the smell of death, all the same to him now. The dog surveyed his trembling body, the pants too baggy for him, and peered with curiosity at his hand clutched at the handle of his knife, ready to stab if the dog made any movement. It growled, challenging him to make the first move. The dog wasn't going to back down, not here when this large meal presents itself. It was desperate, just like him. Another one running from certain death, but one related to starvation and disease. He felt pity and wondered about its former owners and what they had done to make this dog like this. He decided that he would rather kill than die, at least put the dog out its misery, and he swung with his blade, cutting the dog down and pinning it, forcing the dog to thrash its head in pain and fury. The dog bit his ankle and his feet, its neck twisting to work the muscles, and its teeth ripping flesh when needed. He let out a scream that, like a sonic jet, exploded and flew through the air, alerting anything nearby to his presence. The copter blades began to fly again above him. Cries of, "We got him!" and other sounds came from behind him. The dog still had his legs in its mouth, and it was trying to get to the bone. But at the last moment, he pried the knife out of the dog's abdomen and rammed it right through one of its eyes. It shook and squealed in his hands like a kitten almost, and then its mouth opened, letting his legs out of the dog's iron grip between its broken teeth. He began climbing the mountain of trash like his legs were gone, which now sort of felt like it after the beating they took from the dog. That nasty brute. Now, he was going to die. They were running after him, the helicopter flying so close he could feel the wind from the rotating blades that blew the wonderful aroma of trash around him right into his nose. They were yelling at him to stop, but he couldn't hear them. Too much of his blood in his ears, and his heart too. It beated so loud, so quick, he could barely hear nothing from the world except his own panicked breathing. He was nearly at the top of the mountain. He was climbing a gay rock climbing, his hands and his legs skillfully finding the right angles and rock orifices to climb, so that he reaches the top of the mountain. He was safe then, tethered to safety and life, and now he wasn't. He wasn't gonna so easily. Not this quick, of course. His mind told his body for one last climb to freedom. Just one more climb for him, and he would reach the top. His family would get the money. His life would become a rich one. His daughter an actress and a good job. His son a basketball player. There was just that last pull. He had to make it. It began to rain and rain. Forever it did, until the last drop of blood was flushed away.